Welcome back to Truth Moment. I'm your host, Tierra Pritchett. I'm laughing at your face. When something is submerged in the fire, then its shape can shift. Yeah, it can shift. It's your girl, Tierra Pritchett. Y'all don't even realize I'm your girl yet, but here's the thing. Over the course of the next few months, you will discover that I am. Mental health is huge, not just in the Black community, but in all communities. And the thing is that we don't even discuss it. It's something that we live with every single day, but yet we don't face it. And I want you to just take a second to kind of just really hone in on what that means. It's with you every single day. You sleep with it, you eat with it, you go to work with it, you live your day with it, but you don't deal with it, And so that's what Truth Moment is about. I'm bringing awareness not only to the issues that many of us deal with every day, but also getting you to kind of deal with your own stuff, unpack some things. So I will have guests weekly, every Thursday at 8 p.m. I'll have a guest on and we'll discuss common mental health issues. So without further ado, my guest for this week is Elder Phillip Small. Phillip, I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself, but the episode today we're going to be talking about church hurt. Now, how many of you have been to church, grown up in the church, gone to church, and felt that something was missing, or felt that people was doing too much to where that's not where you want it to be anymore? So I decided to bring someone in, and I just want to say to you all, in no means is Phillip saying that he is the voice of the church, or is that he is trying to speak for all churches, all pastors, all elders. We're not saying that at all. This is one man of God, no doubt, but one man bringing his opinion as to what it means to be church hurt and why it happens. Phillip, thank you for coming on to Truth Moment tonight.
It's good, T. Thank you. I appreciate you.
No problem. Again, this has been a long time coming to have him on Truth Moment. We have talks at church. Anytime I come in, just try to slip in. It's so funny because I know it's God, because I try to slip out real quick. You be like, T, where you been? I ain't seen you in a minute. Where you been? I think you hiding. I'm like, no, I'm not hiding.
That's me.
So he's like, man, I see some things you're doing on Instagram. We need to talk. So when the opportunity came to bring Truth Moment to radio, I want to shout out my home, Fly 93.5. Download the app right now. If you're listening to us on the webpage, download the app.
Go get it.
You will not be disappointed by everything that Fly 93.5 is doing, not only for the community, but just in general for the airwaves. Download the app. But Phillip, again, this is a long time coming. We wanted to have you on. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man. First of all, thank you guys. Fly 95. Fly 93.5. I'm sorry. Fly 93.5. But no, thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate it. Tierra, thank you so much for having your boy on. But just a little bit about myself. Kid, born and raised in St. Petersburg, Florida. About 10 minutes outside of Tampa for those who are trying to figure out where it's at. Went to school at the Great Bethune-Cookman University for college, HBCU life all day. Jumped in law enforcement. That was my life. Served the Lord with gladness since I was a kid. Was a drummer in church, and learned the musician life, and did the whole church thing. At Cookman, went to Hope Fellowship Church in Daytona, and went through some experiences there. Went to another couple churches there before I jumped into Hope Fellowship Church. Moved to North Carolina, served there, and God brought us to Atlanta, and we're here. And so life has just really been amazing, but it's had ups and downs, it's had its ins and outs, it's had its hurts and those bittersweet moments, and we just had to live through it all and trust that God was going to get us through it all to this point. And like we just talked about before, major things are on the horizon, but I had to live through those moments.
Okay, so like I said, today we'll be discussing church hurt. To you, when you hear church hurt, what does that mean?
When dealing with church hurt, what that means to me is that somebody in the church has not expressed the love of Christ. God is love. If you believe in the Christian faith, God is love. He's just it. Scripture tells us, for God so loved the world that He gave. And so before God decided to condemn, before God decided to destroy, He gave. And so with Him being loving and all-knowing and all-gracious and kind, somebody did not decide to embody that principle, or somebody used God's name to carry out their point, and it wind up causing offense and injury to somebody.
Okay, so do you feel that in an instance where church hurt occurs, that it's the person who offended fault, or do you feel that it can also be the person who is serving who felt church hurt? Do you feel like they play some ownership in the blame as well?
It's both. It can be both in two different instances. Like I said before, the person who was offending either used God's name in vain, and went after that person for whatever reason it may have been, and it was very brutal. It was very cold. Now, for some people who are super sensitive, you might say it was church hurt, but it was just truth. Hey, you needed to get that stiff little check to say, hey, bring it back in. But then in some instances, people who are on the receiving end, they like to live in the pothole of the moment. I've always been told, never make a pothole your home, because it's become a cave. And so people live in those places. And when you live in that church hurt, it then becomes comfortable, because you like being soothed, you like being loved on from that place of being a victim and being victimized. And so at the end of the day, the purity of what transpired is now perverted to you, because the hurt is what you want to hold on to, how it was said or how it was shaped. If you may have not liked it, and you like to live there. So I say it's on both ends. Sometimes it can be a little rough, but on the other end, you have to look at the purity of what was coming across and see if it was pure. If it wasn't, then you handle it a different way. Jesus gives us the solution that if you have a gift, before you go make that sacrifice, you got to alt with your brother and lay it down. The Bible talks about conflict. Go lay it down and deal with that person. Let us be reasonable. Let us be pursuers of peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall inherit the kingdom. And so the Bible talks about making peace with your brother. And if you're not willing to do that, then church hurt stays there. It's consistent across the board. Okay,
have you ever? Let me just ask. Have you ever been church hurt before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so when you were church hurt, because now you're further along, or maybe not. No, I'm saying like from that moment.
Yeah,
I don't know if it happened last week or if it happened years ago.
It was years ago.
So were you in a place where you were able to say, the Bible says if you have an ought with your brother, lay it down and confront your brother? Like, were you in that place, or is it now that you have grown in your relationship with Christ, so you're able to do that?
I wasn't in that place. Just to be really honest, I think I was like 18, 19 at that time.
Okay.
I was immature in life. And so, though I had been with God since I was like 12, but really trying to build that relationship because I was just out there on my own, I wasn't a mature Christian. And still, in some ways, I'm still not a mature Christian. But at that time, I was learning how to become. Haven't arrived yet, but learning how to become. And so when that instance happened, and I can just kind of give you some backstory behind it. I had a summer in college where I had no place to stay. And so at the time, I was getting ready to go stay with my girlfriend, because that was the only person that was going to open their doors to let me stay. And so called home. Nobody would help me get an apartment because I didn't have bad credit, just didn't have good enough credit to get an apartment on my own. And so started talking to some church leaders like, hey, this is my situation. This is what I'm facing. What should I do? And I was told that I couldn't do it because God wouldn't be pleased with me. And I was like, prove it. and I'm one of those people that if you tell me that God isn't or is going to be pleased with me, you have to back it up with scripture.
Yeah.
And so while they were giving me a lot of dogma, religious law, they never really gave me scripture, but come to find out that they were engaged living with their fiance. So I was like, so what really was the difference? You know, is it orthodoxy or orthopraxy? You gonna tell me or you gonna practice it? You know, you gonna be the orthodox and just tell me it, or you gonna really practice it?
Right.
And from there, you know, being proverbially sat down, told that, you know, because I'm living with somebody who's of the opposite sex and there's temptation there, that my life was promiscuous and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yo, I just needed somewhere to lay my head. Wasn't nobody on that whole, you know, all that other stuff. I was just trying to live, you know?
Right.
So it became a very tough place to exist and serve, because all I was getting was, well, that's the guy who's staying with his girlfriend. That's the guy who's out there trying to, you know, be in the streets like that. And I wasn't. I was just trying to live. Wasn't nobody even on that tip, you know? So that church hurt was very, you know, very minor, but then it got compounded because of other things that were going on in the church that began to make their way to my apartment.
Right.
And I got blamed for it because I was already, you know, the scarlet letter.
Right.
So it compounded. And to make a long story short, the way I was able to get over it and to work my way through it, one was the word of God, but then two, I had to take a step back. You know, a lot of people say Sunday morning you need to be there, Wednesday night, Tuesday night Bible study, you always got to be there. No, I had to take a step back. You know, I wasn't forsaking the assembly of the brethren, but what I was doing was reestablishing my relationship with God in that moment because I needed clarity. And so worshiping and then going to talk to people who had wisdom. Mm-hmm. Was it the best decision for me to live with my girlfriend at the time? Outside looking in, no. But everybody who knew me and knew my heart said that was something you had to do and a test that you had to pass, or not necessarily had to pass, but you had nowhere else to go. So what would you have you do? Stay on the street? No. So, you know, I had to look at it from a couple different ways and get the wisdom of the older folks to understand that I made some bad decisions, mm-hmm. but some decisions that I did make helped me heal from it. And then when I was able to see the person's later on, probably 2 years later, dap them up like nothing happened. Because at the end of the day, forgiveness begins the process of healing. You know, I walked through that space and time of my life, you know, feeling like I was less than in the name of God, but that's not God.
Yeah, I agree. I want to, I guess, challenge you to look at it from one perspective, because what if it's an instance where we can become church hurt because we're placing this man or this woman of God on a pedestal? So mm-hmm. God will remove that from you in order to get you to see you're supposed to be worshiping me.
Absolutely.
Not this other people. Because I think a lot of times people can get church hurt when they invest too much.
Yeah.
Like I've been church hurt before when it was someone that I felt, you know, was of the doctrine, and this was someone sound in the church and had been lying on me. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to associate everyone else with this individual because, you know, of your stature in the church. And so then God had to check me on that. You know, when he tells us all the time, like, the church is outside of just the four walls.
Yep.
You know, you're the church. We're the church. So if you can place so much emphasis and importance on an individual, I think that God will have a way. And yeah, you're supposed to forgive that person and walk in love, but it still stings a little bit. So why do you think that in our community specifically, it's almost like we're more susceptible? Because it's like we place so much emphasis on our relationship with our man and woman of God or the people in the church, so where if something doesn't go our way or someone tells us a no, then we take offense.
Well, first of all, and I'm going to say this might sound real crude and harsh, but church is the place that people who don't have power in their homes and on their jobs is the place that they can come get power. They're not certified in any way, shape, or form to do half of the stuff that they do in church, but because they have a skill set that the pastor or the person in charge needs, they didn't get power. And so at that point, you know, you're invested. You now have a position and you have a title, but you don't have identity. And so when your identity gets hit because that's stripped away from you, mm-hmm. you lash out because you never were whole before you took the position or title. And so a lot of times people they're out of balance. Their life outside of church is moribund, but when they get to church, they're the super saint.
Yeah.
And so when that's stripped from you, when there's a scandal in your church or something happens to your man or woman of God, it's demoralizing, it's draining, it's devastating, but you did not see the red flags that God was putting up because you were so head over heels entrenched to what was going on and not entrenched to Him. I make this statement as I'm learning. Dr. Samuel Rodriguez says all Christians need to stay in the nexus of the cross. The nexus of the cross is that place where the center of the cross horizontally and vertically meet. That's where Jesus had to stay in order to die. And if we stay right there, we're earthly good and we're heavenly good as well. And so that's the place that most Christians refuse to stay because that opens them up and they have to deal with them and God and people. And so when you move too far right or left, you're serving man and you're susceptible to being hurt because you're not connected to God.
Right.
When you go too far up or down vertically, you're serving or you're no longer earthly good, and God works through people. So you have to stay right there centered in the nexus of the cross in order to be even killed, even plain, so that there is usefulness for you, but it gives you affirmation and it's not who you are. So I really challenge people to have a balanced life. Do something other than church. Like in real life. Because, on one end it's very spiritual, on some ends it's a business, but if church is your entire life and your family is not, then you're out of balance. And so the hurt comes when the divorce happens because you've given everything, quote unquote, in the name of God. Or when people walk away from you because you so invested in this building and in a work that is not yours. You are to assist the leader. It's not your permanent assignment. And I think people get caught up in the power of it and what it can, quote unquote, yield and not see who it's supposed to benefit and how it's supposed to benefit the kingdom. Because at the end of the day, it's all temporal. We in shells. We gonna leave this earth. Everything's temporary. And when people get to that place of understanding whose they are, their assignment, identity, confirmation, and affirmation happens. And so that can alleviate some of the church hurt when dealing with the leadership of the church, because it is analogous to being a shepherd and being a sheep when he taps you with the rod and brings you back with the staff to keep you in line with the vision of the house. If that's where your church hurt is, then you're out of order, because at the end of the day, it's not your work. It's still that leader's work.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's a very good perspective and look, towards that subject. But I think that, a lot of times it happens because there's not a keen attention to who you are, from your purpose standpoint, but also from a mental health standpoint. I always say people have to check in. You got to do self-checks. And so if I don't know who I am, then therefore I'm just going to jump on the first assignment that looks good, that's attached to a name. A lot of people like to say where we go to church. Yeah. You and I, they like to say where they go to church. Yeah. And who is their man or woman of God. But it's like, okay, but who are you outside of an attendee or member or dreamer? Who are you outside of that?
Absolutely.
And I feel that that's where you become more susceptible. That's when there's so much gray area, because I will get offended if I don't know who I am due to what you said. Yeah. If what you said makes me question my assignment and who I am, then it's gonna cause a disarray of, well, that's not who I thought I was. Well, I don't think that's what God said about me and as far as my direction for my life. But you don't know. If you don't know that, then what someone else said can discredit what you thought you were supposed to do.
That's very true. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Jesus even took time off to rest. So after he served, the multitudes, he went to go pray.
Yeah.
It was by himself, so he had to face him and his Father. If you're not taking those mental health breaks, those times to have introspection, those times to refresh yourself.
Right.
You leave yourself very vulnerable to whatever's going to come. So if Jesus did it, then who are we?
Right.
You know, take the time out. Go on vacation.
Yeah.
And going to convention and convocation ain't vacation, saints of God. No, in real life. You know,
no.
Go hang out. Go
Yeah.
do something with your kids. Go do something with your wife or husband. You know, because that's your first ministry anyway. You know, there's a Genesis group and there's an Acts group. Paul said those who are single have more time to work in ministry than those who are married. It's about balance and perspective.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you said, knowing who you are. At the end of the day, if you don't like children, you don't need to be working in children's ministry.
Right.
In real life.
No shade, no tea. I'm just saying.
If you cannot, you know, really be hospitable, maybe being an usher is not the place for you.
Yeah.
My grandmother was very mean. I don't know how she dated on the usher board for 35 years. My grandma was mean. So she was that usher that came to you and put her hand in your face and said gum.
Yeah.
She ain't say good morning. She ain't say nothing. Gum.
Yeah.
So you have your personality and your passion should lead your purpose in wherever you're serving at in life and in church. You know, it's just not, oh, well, you know, I'm an accountant outside of the four walls. Well, maybe, you know, I'm going to go do, you know, and be part of the nurses ministry. Baby, you know nothing about health. Go sit down.
Yeah. So, okay, one of my favorite scriptures, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And it's one of my favorites because of the line of work that I do. Because you'll have Christians say, I don't really do the whole therapy thing. I don't believe in that. Or they'll say, I'm just going to pray about it and leave it on the altar. So one of my biggest, antagonists as far as my line of work goes are Christians. So when I tell them that I am too, you know, a Christian, it's kind of like, oh, well, how can you be? If you have faith, then you shouldn't be suffering from depression. If you have faith, then you shouldn't have anxiety. You know, so yes, the Bible says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds, but also the wise man seeketh counsel.
Absolutely.
Counsel. You can't have counseling without counsel.
I mean, before you do anything, the Bible says, before you go to war, seek wise counsel.
Yeah.
In real life. And that's a big disparity. I feel like you need a preacher and a therapist, you know, because there are certain things in life that you don't feel comfortable with sharing with your family. Right. And you need somebody who is objective enough to say, hey, you know, it makes sense, but it don't make sense. Let me help you.
Yeah.
I have no problem with going and praying about certain things, but to have a relevant, current answer, God very well may be leading me to a therapist. I've had to do it before. Had to go sit down, talk with somebody to understand what was going on in this particular area of my life.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, part of the reason why the church isn't as impactful in the African American experience is because we're not willing to share. The Bible says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, which suggests you have to go through something in order to testify of what did or didn't happen.
Right.
And so if you're not willing to share that experience, if you're not willing to share those moments, the wisdom never gets trickled down to the ones, you know, who come after you.
Right.
God told Moses after the battle, write this down. I'm going to wipe out the Amalekites, but they're going to be destroyed in every generation. So they are going to have to understand what happened in this point and know that the same God that delivered them with Moses will be delivering them from generation to generation to generation to generation. But it had to be written down so that they can understand that Amalek, that king, he's dead physically, but the spirit remains. And we wrestle not against flesh and blood, Christian. So now you'll know how God delivered them. Faith now gets increased because God delivered them. He's immutable. He doesn't change. He's the same God. But Joshua had to consult Moses in order to get the understanding of the revelation.
Yeah.
So there was counsel in that. I suggest to Christians, go sit down with the therapist. use your EAP at work because you got the benefits. Yeah. You got the benefits.
I do take EAP, by the way. I take EAP.
Use your EAP. Go sit down and talk to somebody, because your pastor may not be skilled in counseling. All pastors aren't.
Right.
So go sit down with a therapist, and if you want a Christian therapist, search for that if your EAP allows it.
Right.
But have that balance, because there are certain things that need to be brought up in order for you to pray for that will be unearthed in therapy, and let God do the rest of the work.
Right.
But I believe in both.
Okay, so which segues to a really good point. Why do you think that has, or where has that, I guess, transpired in our culture to where, because I'm sure you've heard it before, what happens in this house stays in this house. Don't tell our business when you leave up out of this house. So that is an exact contradictory to what the word spoke of, in order for things to happen, in order for things to be, changed from a generational standpoint, it has to be shared. We don't share.
We don't share. I suggest part of it is, that whole 60s to 70s movement to where families were very close knit, but it was about status as well. And you weren't gonna tell my business out there in the streets. But that was a killer to us, because you had kids being touched, and ain't nobody talking about why Uncle Lester coming out of John room 2:00 in the morning. He wasn't sleeping on the floor.
Right.
And so that caused detriment in the African American experience. I can be very transparent. I was molested as a child, and I had the same experience. You keep this on the inside of the house. But this was the thing. I kept it on the inside of the house and was tormented. And so now I'm walking around having these thoughts of, can I trust men because this man did something to me when I was a boy?
Yeah.
And it's not until I sat down and started getting counseling. At that point, he was my pastor, and he walked me through the steps of deliverance, but he was certifiable in the counseling. There was a spiritual aspect and a natural aspect, but it's not until I got it out that it could get dealt with.
Right.
And so you have to get it out in order to, number one, just let it get out to take the weight off of you.
Right.
And then you can confront it so it can be killed. And if you don't kill it, it comes back. So at that point, I had to get it out, had to face it. We worked through it. We fought it. I got the victory over it. And so now I can talk to somebody about, hey, I understand your plight, because I was there at one point in time of my life. Because a lot of parents didn't know what to do, because they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the understanding to do it. So, it's a cultural cue that was a bad cultural cue for us. And now we're living in a different dispensation of grace. Take your kids to go see a counselor if something happens. You go sit down with a counselor if something happens.
It's necessary and it is needed. Just suicide is so high in our community because we don't talk about things. Mm-hmm. We keep things inside, and and I think that aids in church hurt, because if I'm going Sunday after Sunday and I'm receiving what I perceive to be a rhema word, and I'm shouting with the best of them, and I'm sowing, and I'm tithing, and I'm giving abundantly, and I'm still coming home Monday through Saturday and dealing with this same thing, it's like, well, God, where are you? Or this man of God, because you'll have pastors that come down and they'll pray over you and they say, this thing is done, and leave it here at the altar, and you'll have people, well, I'm doing this, I'm following this shepherd, and I'm doing what you're saying I need to do, but yet when I go home, this thing is still with me. And so you have people that, it's such a huge disconnect between therapy or mental health and the church, because people have this misconception that when I pray about it, it's supposed to be gone.
True. There's a connection in mental health. I would say this about every imaginable thing that's not like Christ. And so it's dealing with your mind and your thoughts. Whatever man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Yeah. And so, the thoughts that transpire, Paul says, whatever's good, whatever's lovely, whatever's pure, practice that, which means there has to be a reoccurring theme. There has to be some things that you put into you that you see from other people. Whatever you're putting into yourself, what are you reading? What does your diet, look like mentally? And so my question is, what are you putting into yourself? Are you constantly rehearsing that thing over and over again, to where now when you go to the altar and leave it there, because you trained yourself to rehearse it, it's not going to stay there because it's a practice behavior. You can't leave something that you do consistently.
Yeah.
You can't leave it there. But it also says, too, that church now has to become more relational. Mm-hmm. People can get good preaching online.
That's true.
People can get good preaching online. They don't come to church for amazing preaching anymore. They come to church to be pastored. And I say this, me and my friends talk about this all the time. If you're not connecting and touching your people, your impact is short. So that means if you're sowing and you're tithing and you're still in the same condition, I suggest, this is just me, little old Phillip Small, that you might not be receiving the pastoring that you need. Because as a sheep, as a shepherd, as I help with another shepherd, the people that I have charged to supervise, I have to notice when something's going on. Hey man, you've been out of church for the last 2 to 3 Sundays. Hey man, you got this jury countenance about you. What's going on? I ain't talked to you. I called T. Where you been?
I had a whole child, Phillip. I was out because of my baby.
So, but
no, I know, and I appreciate that. Like I said, it never fails. Like if I, miss a couple of Sundays, the moment I step up in there, T, hey, where you been? Where you at? I'm like, hey, what's up? And our church is not small
at all.
It's not.
It's like 5,000 parishioners. We ain't small at all.
Yeah, but he'll see me. He sees me.
So I say, the leadership, the pastor's leadership has to be, number one, has to have their same spirit. Mm-hmm. They have to be the extension of the pastoral arm. So that means you have to care for his people just as much, as he does. While it's not your specific assignment in the leadership, you have to be able to reach out and just call somebody. Hey man, just checking on you, seeing how you doing, man. Just want to tell you I love you today. Man, anything you need, holla at me. And you don't know if that person got a noose around their neck or not. Right. Don't know if there's a pill bottle in their hand or a gun getting ready to be put to their head. And so that says church has to be intentional about being the church. God works through people. It's people to people. Yeah. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. It's about establishing God's principles and patterns in the earth and connecting to people. If you're not dealing with people and dealing with the lives of people, then you're there for worship on Sunday morning. You have to deal with the people.
Yeah. So what is because you are a minister, what is your, role in order to make sure that mental health and the church start to combine so that we can see a change in that?
My functionality with that, at the Dream Center Church of Atlanta, I serve as the executive director of pastoral care. And so my job is to make sure that people are just good. Whether it's marrying them, burying them, whether it's just a call to say, hey, you ain't been in the church in a couple weeks, what's going on? My job is just to make sure that people are just good. Yeah. And so, hey man, I'm struggling, been working a couple extra shifts because I need some food. Well, hey man, church gonna give you $100 food card. Take some of that weight off of you. You ain't gotta work all them crazy shifts. Sit down and rest for a Sunday. Sit down and rest for a Tuesday. Take that shift off, man. To connect it with the mental health, it is to refer people out to counseling. I'm not CPE certified. So I'm not going to take on things that I'm not equipped to handle. I'm going to refer you out to a therapist and follow up with the therapist and you to make sure you're getting counseling. Because at the end of the day, there are certain things that the church is equipped to handle by sending them out to somebody that they trust.
I feel that it's the responsibility of the church to refer out. if it's something that is outside of your scope of training, understanding, expertise, it is your duty, being a man or woman of God, to refer out. And I think that sometimes that could cause church hurt in people when someone tries to take on something that they've not been ordained or called to do. Yeah, and that's where people can, have that, where they kind of fall to the wayside or they fail because you have someone that, I want to make the church's name great, or I want to make my name great and be able to be all of these things to all of these people and do all of these things, when no, God's not calling you to do that. You may save a life by saying, I know this really good therapist
in real life.
Yeah, instead of being like, tell me about everything that's going on. Because you travel, you have a lot going on too, which we're going to touch on. Everything. He's not just out here saving souls by holding his Bible on his Bible app. Ladies and gentlemen, he is feeding the saints as well. And we are going to get to that, because I want to give you the opportunity to talk to people about, what's going on. What is it, a Small Bite?
Yeah, Small Bites Catering Company. We take care of you. We not only feed the soul, but we feed the belly too. So
that's right. That's right. And so, again, I really want to thank you. We're not done. I want to, segue to your catering, but I just want to thank you again to not only coming on and talking to us about church hurt and kind of where it's originating from, some of the reasons, but also being so knowledgeable. Yeah, man, you will spin that word out. Sometimes the saints, they like to be play. But you really know what you was talking. And God said to the saints. Man, you did. You did.
I can't come on here and not know the word.
That's right.
Gotta hit it by heart that I might not sin against the law.
That's right. That's what's up. I appreciate that for real. If you listening tonight and you maybe didn't know that you were gonna, get some church, but that's what it's about. You see when people, live it. It's not just about a lifestyle. It's like living it. Exactly. You are walking like you're talking. And
yes, I listen to Migos.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yes, it is okay.
Yeah, I listen to trap music and I love the Lord.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, if y'all don't know, we had the pink stove on our stage.
We know we had the pink trap house on our stage.
We did have the trap house on stage for a minute. And so, okay, I'm going to back that up real quick. You said it was about, previously you were saying that it's about what we pour into us. What are you reading? What are you listening to?
But
Phillip is listening to trap music, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I'm listening to trap music. I'm between 3 books right now in real life. The Leadership Effect by Sam Chan. I hope I got that right. Dr. Sam Chan, don't hurt me. The Mentor Mantle by Bishop Randy Borders. And I'm reading Bigger, Faster Leadership. And I just got done with, I can't pronounce his last name, but Dr. Chuck. I just got done with What If It Wasn't Worth It?
Okay.
And so I'm between 3 books. I'm a reader. Every preacher needs to be a fine connoisseur of language. And so I'm between 3 books, but I'm also gearing myself up to go back to school to get my doctorate. So I got to keep reading like that. Okay. But yeah.
So how do you not justify, but how can you listen to, because I want to say that too, you're really relatable. Like the young people, I've stepped in and I've seen you teach the word to our teens at Rock Nation, and they enjoy when Elder Small is teaching the class. So like, how is it that you're able to be relatable by listening to trap music, but you also are heavily ingrained in your word?
Okay, let's just put this out here.
Please do.
And Jesus was at the wedding, and the wine ran out.
But Phillip, the wine ran out, but he didn't say, "Cue the Migos," and I'm about to bring this wine back.
Let's bring it culturally.
Okay.
There in antiquity, there was a wedding happened for like a month.
Right.
Because there are like 7 to 8 couples that got married at one time because everybody ain't had it like that. So the music that they were playing wasn't necessarily God's music, but it was music to fit the time and the culture.
Okay.
I grew up in a rap age. Mm-hmm. I'm a ATLian, but I grew up in Florida for life. 3 Stacks is my man.
Right.
50 grand all day. I'm a big guy. I grew up on Tupac. But this was the thing. Music relates to culture.
Yeah.
Music does not become my life. I did not sell drugs. Let's be clear. My mama whooped me.
Right.
Let's really be honest. I wasn't sneaking out the house because I was more scared of my mama than I was the police.
Yeah.
In real life. So I wasn't trying to live that lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
So you can let music influence you to do what the music says that they live, or you can understand the music as a relation to where culture is.
Yeah.
And rap is telling the story of where we are. You know, rap, that's just where it started from.
Well, see, I would have to disagree in some slight regard, because I feel that some rap tells where we are. But see, because Harold will tell me all the time, like, yeah, when it comes to, you know, the type of music I listen to, type of music he listens to, I can't really take your opinion, T, because you listen to trap. Like I do. I love Cardi B. Love it. No. Love it. No. I love Cardi B. Because I enjoy trap music. I love the beats. I love trap beats. However, I think that we have a certain responsibility because, we're not trying to live those. And I think that you have to be in a place where you understand, again, who you are, because identity is important.
Major. Understand
who you are, what you're after in life, and then you can differentiate and decide what you want to do with that music. Me, I listen to it. It gets me pumped. I enjoy it, but I'm not out here like, dang, all right, so to get these bags, I need to talk my husband into moving mad weight. Like, maybe we got these extra pots in the kitchen. Maybe we can use these to whipping up babies. No, I'm not doing that. So I think that we, like I said, we have a responsibility to this young generation because they hear it and they want to emulate those things, and they're like, oh, this is cool. This is, I teach at a group, and these kids, they were telling me like, yeah, I want to rap. So I'm like, okay, spit something. And they're like, some of them were too shy, but someone was like, all right, this is something I've been working on. And one boy was talking about, he had a Uzi and and it's da-da-da. And I was like, where do you live again? And he lives in a 5-bedroom home, nice cars, but this is what they want to emulate.
And I think because that happens because the men in our culture have not produced. We've been exclusionary fathers. We have not been there. Mm-hmm. The uncle became the stepdad. This your uncle. He just coming to stay tonight. And then he became the stepfather. And he ain't really produced nothing. He work a 9-to-5 job. Ooh, boy, I make $15 an hour. And that's the best that they see. So why not emulate what's making millions? And so as African American men, we got to start producing.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in a radio station right now. 2 African American men are producing. That's big. What are you producing as an African American male? But then 2 African American females, while y'all killing the game right now, some lady standards are still low, so they just let anything around their kids.
Yeah.
I mean, your standard has to come up at some point in time in life, which says you're not growing and maturing as a person.
Right.
So you have to grow. You have to grow. You have to check what's going on in your kid's life. If they want to emulate what they see on TV, and we all know that money rented, majority of them cars rented, that ice rented, if that's what they want to emulate, then what aren't you producing? Because at the end of the day, and I say this to this day, I'm 32 years old. My brother is about to be 40 this year. My brother is one of my heroes. My dad is one of my heroes. They produced.
Okay, so with that being said, Phillip, what are you producing?
What am I producing? What am I producing right now?
Going on?
Oh boy, it's crazy right now. I am the kitchen manager at the Crab Spot at Johns Creek. Come holla at me. We do some great, amazing food. Statesbridge Road. Holla at your boy. Shameless plug. But I'm a kitchen manager, but I was in law enforcement for 10 years, so I understand the culture, and I was able to work with people and help them work through and walk through those processes. I'm also going back to school, working on my doctorate, going back for a D-Min in pastoral leadership. I know God's called me to pastor. It's not just something that I'm falling into. I can make money other ways. It ain't, I ain't got nothing else to do, I might as well go to the church. Nah, that ain't it. And it ain't because I've been in church all my life either, because I was the one that was said it wasn't going to be nothing. And I'm not trying to throw that sob sad story, but I grew up with people who just didn't believe in me. Mm-hmm. And so still producing on that level. So Small Bites Catering Company.
What is Small Bites? Small
Bites Catering Company is a catering company that specializes in Southern fare. We just do it with a whimsical twist.
Okay.
And so, we're getting ready to pump out some private dining events. We'll hit all your catering needs in the ATL or wherever you need me to be at. I'll be there. So we do weddings, bar mitzvahs, we do quinceañeras, whatever you need me to do, we can adapt, baby. Okay. I got you. But I'm also, trying to become an author. It took me discipline to do it, but it's taking me now almost about 8 months, and I'm just writing daily to start a devotional. I want to put a book together to make it relational for men and younger boys that, hey, that God is not foreign to the African American male, and it's not and I'm not saying it's not, God is not feminized like we see a lot of times, like they try to make most males to be in the church. No, I'm a real man in real life. Let's just really be honest. I watch sports, I go lift, I do all that kind of stuff. I go to the gun range. I like having fun. I get out there and get in the dirt. But I'm trying to be an author, I'm a preacher. I'm jumping out there in business, and I just got another call today from a family member who wants to bring me to their city to do some revamping to one of their to one of their restaurants, excuse me. So, we trying to put it out there to where, the church is not the sole base of income, but I got multiple streams coming in, so that at the end of the day, my kids will never have to face the struggles that I had to face, and they'll say that, hey, my dad, while he never sold dope, my dad had the money that I needed, and it wasn't anything illegitimate.
And I agree. I think that, representation is important.
Yeah.
And when there is little to no representation, they see that, okay, in order for me to be black and to make it, I have to play sports.
Yep.
Or I have to be a rapper, or
yep.
I got to sell drugs.
Yep.
And it's sad, and that had a huge part as to why Harold and I wanted to move to Atlanta, because we wanted our kids to see black doctors and lawyers, and a mayor named Keisha. Atlanta got a mayor named Keisha.
Wakanda forever.
So that they can see representation. So when they watch their Disney shows and things like that, and they're just seeing the little white girls and little white boys, that they don't feel that their black isn't beautiful and
Absolutely.
isn't good enough. And to my white listeners, that's no knock to you all, but it is important for our black sons and daughters to see people like themselves that they may want to emulate.
Absolutely. Because everything in my generation growing up either sold dope, rap, or was out there on the field. I played sports, but I knew sports wasn't going to be my profession. There was more in me. And you have to really look at capacity. So if your kids are like actively drawing and being, graphic artists and all that kind of stuff, let them do that. Stop giving your kids the fear of the 9-to-5 that our parents instilled in us. Like, stop doing it. Because God made your child a creative, and creativity can bring money. If your child can answer the solution to somebody's problem creatively, they'll get paid to do it.
Right. And to listeners out there, it doesn't matter if the market is flooded. If God purposed you to do it, then He'll make room. He'll make room. I saw a meme about that the other day, and that just really resonated with me, because when it came to radio or the TV show, I'm like, everybody. I remember telling my sister before we even got started doing this, where she was saying, sis, let me grab the camera and set up and let you just talk to people. And I'm like, everybody does that. Everybody on their phone, in the car, on social media, trying to drop some knowledge. And she was like, but God put it in you to say a certain word. So He'll give you the strategy on how to say it, even if someone else has already said it.
And He'll connect you around the people to do it. There's no happenstance to this. I believe all things work together for the good, and that God has our steps ordered, but you just got to be obedient and follow it. There's no by happenstance that everybody is in this room tonight and this is going on. The building of a relationship birthed this.
Yeah, absolutely.
The building of a relationship birthed you here tonight. So I would say to people, live intentionally, live on purpose, but live looking to see what's next from God.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we limit our expectation to what is, and we say, oh, because there is a flood of this, but this is the thing, if he said before the foundations of the world, this is what you're going to be, you now have to walk in it. No matter what the opposition will come, you will flourish. Yeah. There's a promise spoken over your life. You just got to tap into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, what you just said, I was supposed to do a speaking engagement the weekend of the celebrity basketball game, and I didn't go. It ended up getting pushed back, and so I went to the celebrity basketball game, and I saw Fly 93.5, and they were down there, and I went, and I was like, oh, radio station, cool, and I was just trying to get an interview. So that shows right there how we can limit God. Because I was trying to get an interview on their station. And so then I talked to, shout out to DeMarco and the family at Fly 93.5. And I talked to him and told him what I did and everything. And he was just like, oh, cool. We could use something like that at the station. And I was like, what? That wasn't even my intention, but I thought it was incredible. So then, went and told my sister and my husband, and I was so disappointed about the speaking engagement that had fallen through. And I told her, I said, the first time something fell through, truth moment was birthed. And so I'm like, man, I wonder what God is going to birth in this situation that fell through. And so now, more like I said, Fly 93.5 up here with you. And it was an incredible interview. So thankful for you for coming out, making time in your busy schedule, rearranging things.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
To come and be with us here tonight and just dropping knowledge on church hurt. If you've been church hurt, I hope that you can take something away from this interview. It's also going to be available on my YouTube channel, which is Truth Moment Vlog, so you can watch it up there as well. Listen to it, download the app again, Fly 93.5. But if you've been church hurt, again, I ask you to venture into your own feelings and asking yourself, what role did you play in it? Did you put too much faith in man to where God was saying, this is not what I said to you, so therefore dial it back so that you can hear me directly? I tell people all the time, there are a lot of times where people will go out and just want to hear the word of the prophet, but did God already tell you these things first, or are you under the word of a man or woman of God that you trust that you're hearing from God when they speak? But if you've been church hurt before, I would say don't give up on the church. We still need that, that fellowship, the relationship, like Elder Small spoke about today. We still have to touch people, check in on people, make sure that they're doing all right. And there is a place for mental health understanding and correction within the church. You have to be corrected. The Bible also speaks about that, being corrected. Yep. The wise man has to be. I mean, if you're not willing to accept constructive criticism and correction, then you can't say that you walk with Christ.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus pretty much laid it out there like an analogy to cutting back a tree. There has to be some pruning.
Yeah.
So what you think is going to be the flourishing arm for you to produce the fruit, he has to cut that back in order to save the tree itself, to save the plant itself. So it hurt. You saw it die, but you lived through it. You don't need it, but look at what's blooming on top.
Right.
Oftentimes we don't see what really God is doing because we're in it. I love this analogy that I came up with. It's like the marching band. You in the marching band, you never see the formation, but when you go into the stands, you see what's being spelled out, you see what's being, what's being created.
Yeah.
And so when you decide to take that picture and lift up and look up to the hills from which cometh your help, you'll begin to get a bigger picture. God told Moses at the Red Sea, it was Pharaoh behind them, and the Red Sea in front of them. Stand still and watch my salvation. And the Red Sea parted. So at some points in time, we're going to have to stop, trust God, let him open up the way. It's going to be marvelous in our eyes. And walk through it, even though it looks scary. And I guarantee you, God's word has never failed, will never fail.
Or return void.
Or return void,
Yeah.
and the fruit will produce.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to thank you. This was our first night. We're getting comfortable. This is home. So please tune in next Thursday at 8 o'clock on the Fly 93.5 app, or you can also check us out on our webpage. And be sure to tune in to this video that'll be uploaded to my YouTube with Truth Moment Vlog. So again, I want to thank you all for listening. And yeah, thank you. Get comfortable. We're going to be here for a minute. I want to thank my guest again, Elder Phillip Small. Be sure to be on the lookout for everything that he has coming, his book, his catering service, just everything that he's doing. He's a man of God and incredible. I can't wait to see what all God unfolds for you.
It's scary, but I'm walking in it.
It's going to be incredible. Again, thank you again. You guys have a good night. Peace.
Peace.